From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Dennis's Heating and Air Conditioning is Northern California's premier heating and air conditioning contractor. From residential housing, large commercial projects, installation to repair, sheet metal fabrication, and everything in between, we are your go-to heating and air conditioning specialist.
Happy Tuesday morning to you. It looks like we are seeing those showers finally moving on, and they of course moved in yesterday afternoon for the coast, and then as expected that line progressively started to shift to the south and east overnight and into the morning. Now, we did see some of those showers work their way down into Chico, Willows, and looks like even Oroville got in some of the rain as well. The forecast models were showing most of that activity staying north of Chico. So, as I mentioned, you have to just shift that a little bit more to the south, and now you've got that rain, and that's essentially what happened. But I do think eventually all the rain that you see here will be shifting northward throughout the day, which we'll get into here a little bit later. Take a look at some of the rainfall totals, and nothing terribly impressive, although out in Shingletown did see over a half an inch there. And look at that, Redway, about close to an inch of rain, and this is just the last 24 hours. So again, this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more to come, especially as we go into tonight and early tomorrow morning. So looking at your weather headlines, and this is what we're really going to kind of dive into in our deeper dive forecast. It's cooler and unsettled this week. We've got heavy rain, gusty winds, thunderstorms, and high snow levels, mainly above 6,000 feet. Now, there is the potential for flooding, but not for everyone. You have to pay attention to where that potential is, and that's mainly going to be the north coast and for the areas north and west of the valley. But by the time we get into Friday, and in particular this weekend, I do expect quieter conditions as we take you into the weekend. Well, today is Tuesday, November 4th. Let's get into your Krueger's Quick Cast. Just a quick look at the forecast for today. If you've got outdoor plans, well, some of you are going to be wet through a good portion of the day, while others not so much. We're starting off the day with showers for many of us, but then as we progress through the afternoon, especially to the south, we'll start to see those chances for showers diminish, but the north coast, see the better chances for the rain. So there you can see the activity coming in from the west. That's what's moving in. What's over the Gulf of Alaska is what will be here tonight, and that's when those winds will start to pick up as well. As you can see here, we've got those gusty winds upwards of around 30, even close to 40 miles per hour. But again, it's tonight and early tomorrow morning when we expect some of those strongest winds. So let's take a look at that rain. There it is this morning, and of course it does include places like Chico. But again, as we take you through around midday, most of that rain is pushing to the north. Now, places like Red Bluff, Redding may still see a few showers, but you can see the bulk of the rain is north and west of the valley. That continues to pivot more to the north-northwest, and by 6 p.m., most of it is in Del Norte, northern Humboldt County, and even western Siskiyou County. But eventually, you can see that that cold front is pushing eastward, and that's going to push all of that eastward overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. We'll get into all of that, more on that timing in our deeper dive forecast in just a bit. Temperatures are going to be in the 60s for most of us in the valley. A little bit warmer for places like Chico because it will dry out sooner than, say, Redding, for example. And then, of course, we've got that rain pretty much through a good portion of the day for the north coast. Now, for tonight, it is going to be wet, but we are also seeing that chance for thunderstorms on Wednesday. Dry for the first half of the day on Thursday, but then maybe more showers Thursday afternoon. And then I do expect drier and warmer conditions, especially for the weekend. For the coast, showers continue off and on through Thursday. Then by Friday through the weekend, we're drying out. That's also the case for the inland areas. Really across the board, we're going to see a drier trend. It's going to be that transition day on Friday where we start to see clearing skies and then more sunshine and warmer temperatures as we do go into the weekend. All right, that is a look at your Krueger's Quickcast. Now let's go into our deeper dive forecast, sponsored by Shasta Hearing Aids.
Frank, come help with the dishes.
What?
The dishes!
I heard it the first time. I just got back from Shasta Hearing Aids, but she doesn't know it yet. What?
Forget it.
So the deeper dive forecast, as mentioned, is sponsored by Shasta Hearing Aids, and what we're going to be looking at here is a series of storms. Now, the first one has pretty much moved on in. You can see this cold front, and it weakened, so it's not bringing us a ton of rainfall, but some of us obviously more than others, right? Then this right here, this is the big event. This is the main event here as we go into tonight and into tomorrow. We're going to talk about an atmospheric river. This is not a scare tactic. This is not to get clicks or anything like that. I just want to mention that the past few atmospheric river events that we've had, the atmospheric rivers did not stick around for very long. Now, this one in particular, as you can see here this morning, it's aimed at Northern California. What it's going to do is pivot northward and then pivot back to the south. So it will be in some areas longer for at least a 24-hour period of time. That is enough for us to see a lot of rainfall in that period of time, and some areas, in particular the north coast, could see some of that flooding. So as this area of low pressure dives to the south, what happens is as this dives to the south, we see this pivot more to the north. So that's why I expect drier conditions as you head to the south, even in parts of the valley this afternoon. But then that cold front pushes through late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And in fact, by the time we do get into the morning hours, that atmospheric river is now pointed down to our south. Now, we're still going to be looking at cold and unstable air in place, and that's going to bring us more scattered showers and thunderstorms through the day on Wednesday. Then you can see another little surge of moisture comes in by the time we get into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. That's our next shot at some more rainfall before that moves on out, and then high pressure starts to settle in. And that's going to really divert this energy and that batch of moisture off to our west. And then as this moves eastward, it will weaken, and our chances for rain are going to be very minimal by the time we do get into your Monday and Tuesday. Now, as I mentioned, not all atmospheric rivers, and I've mentioned this many times, not all atmospheric rivers are the same. You've got 5 different categories, 1 being the weakest, 5 being the strongest. Now, what you'll see here, we're looking at the coast, right? You're seeing that we are getting into the atmospheric river 3 solidly, right? But also some outlying models put us in the category 4. So this is why, and you can see how we're kind of leading up to it, rain, and then it really starts to ramp up, and then it just drops significantly after that as you go into Wednesday afternoon and Thursday. Even though we will see some of that rain on Thursday, it just won't be as significant. So this right here is where we got the strongest winds and that potential for flooding for parts of the north coast. Now, as we typically see, the foothills east of the valley, not nearly as strong, but there will be some of that little spike here. Atmospheric river category 2, not as strong as what we're going to see for the coast, but still that rain and another little spike here, and then really not much of an impact at all as we go into the weekend and early next week. So with all of that said, yeah, north and west of the valley, you've got that flash flood risk. That also includes parts of the valley, especially if you get some of that training effect or the convergence zone around the Redding area. That could produce some of that localized flooding as well. Still some leftover activity on Thursday could lead to the potential for more flash flooding for Thursday, again, mainly for the north coast and some of the coastal range. There actually is a flood watch for this evening through Wednesday morning. This is when we're really going to see that heaviest push of rain, strongest winds as well. Mudslides and debris flows are not out of the question either. Now today, as it does kind of push through, there could be a chance for some thunderstorms along the coast, and then more widespread thunderstorms are a very good possibility for tomorrow. And you'll notice that we don't see this happen very often. When you start getting into the marginal and slight, that's when you have a better chance of seeing even the potential for severe thunderstorms. So that means some large hail, very strong winds, frequent lightning, and again, that potential for some of that flooding. So tomorrow is really going to be that main event, really tonight, tomorrow. Early tomorrow morning is that main event with the heaviest rainfall and the strongest winds. Let's walk you through that timing. All right, so this morning, again, it's Chico's even seeing some of the shower activity, but this is where that main atmospheric river is. But as that low pressure off over the Gulf of Alaska dives to the south, we're going to see this pivot northward throughout the morning. And you can see that. You see how it shifts northward. So by midday, I still think there may be some showers. And this is one of those atmospheric rivers where the cutoff of where it's wet and where it's not wet is very sharp. So again, if you just shift this a little bit more to the south, now you've got more rain in Redding, right? You shift a little bit more to the north, now we don't even have any rain near Bernie. So again, it just depends on where this is. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at this here throughout the day. But through the afternoon, that continues. So it starts here this morning, and then it kind of pivots throughout the day. And by 5 p.m., it's mainly in western Siskiyou, northern Humboldt, and Delnor counties where we're seeing some of that heaviest rainfall. All right, so again, keep in mind, throughout the day, this area right here is seeing rain through a good portion of the day and steady, a light to moderate rainfall throughout the day and periods of heavy rainfall as well. So these are areas that are going to see the most amount of rainfall just through the day today. And then we see that push of heavier rain coming in tonight as the main cold front right here begins to push through. Now we're squeezing out even more rainfall. Now we're seeing torrential downpours along with gusty winds at this point. That shifts eastward. We're all asleep and in bed, 3 o'clock in the morning. I won't be, but most of you will be. Heavy rainfall, gusty winds at this point, and lightning strikes. Then the main atmospheric river by this point is really right here. Okay, behind it, we've got the cold front, cold and unstable air, and you see how things aren't as widespread now. We are seeing strong south winds. There's that convergence line around Redding. Now, sometimes when these convergence lines develop, they can stick around for a while in one area. They tend to wobble sometimes, but we can sometimes see flooding along that line. So that's something we've got to watch here for the Redding area. But notice to the south, we're not seeing as much activity for places like Red Bluff, Corning, or Chico. And that's why I really haven't included much in the way of rain for Wednesday south of the Redding area. But you see scattered thunderstorms in the east, really in the mountains, and even for parts of the north coast. Taking you through the afternoon, you see how we still have that line? That's mainly thanks to those very strong winds here we have from the south. So again, I think we're going to see this do this throughout the day, but there is going to be some of that steady rainfall in some areas in north and northeastern Shasta County, even into Modoc County, and that could create some flash flooding in some areas here. Even as we go into the overnight hours, we're still seeing some of those scattered showers and thunderstorms, but it's beginning to taper off. And I think the first half of the day on Thursday will be dry for many of us, but there's that next fetch of moisture I was talking about coming in Thursday afternoon, and I think that will start to push eastward. So the first half of the day for many of us will be dry, but then by the afternoon and evening, we see that next round of more widespread rainfall across the region. Then once that moves out, I do expect Friday to be the transition day, and you can see things are starting to dry out and even clear out by the time we get into Friday afternoon, and we'll finally be done with it even as we go into the weekend. Now, don't take these numbers to be exact. I'm going to show you two different rain forecast models here. And really the main thing I want to point out is where the main footprint is. Heaviest rainfall to the north and west. And remember, we saw that potential for flooding here. Now, also, you can see, we see that as the winds kind of blow up the mountains here, we tend to see heavier rainfall here in the eastern mountain, just east of the valley, that is, in some of the foothills. But you can see here, a bit of shadowing to the south. I mean, we'll be lucky to get an inch of rainfall in places like Chico, but I think we could see upwards of 1 to maybe even 2 inches of rain for the Redding area, and obviously a bit more out along the coast here. Now, this one is a little bit more aggressive. So as you can see, upwards of maybe 5 inches in some parts of the north coast, and it's showing about 2.5 inches of rain for Redding, and a little bit more than an inch for places like Chico and Oroville. So you kind of get somewhere in between. But again, look at the footprint. Heaviest rainfall north and west of the valley, and then we see some heavier rainfall in the foothills east of the valley as well. So bottom line, not everyone's going to see a ton of rainfall. So we're talking about this, and I actually saw it on social media, people making comments. I was talking about the potential for flooding in some of the areas of the north coast, and someone who lived in the valley said, this is not going to be a big deal. The valley will be lucky to get 2 inches of rain at most. I said, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. We're not going to see flooding in the valley, with the exception of maybe around Redding, if we get caught up in one of those convergence lines and it sticks around for a while. But most of the overall flooding and the best chances will be north and west of the valley, because this is where we're going to see the longest periods of that steady, moderate rainfall, especially today, tonight, and into tomorrow morning. So again, just bear that in mind. We have so many microclimates around here. You really have to pay attention to the forecast, where you are, where the biggest impacts will be, and where the smaller impacts will be, and where you are in all of that. It gets tricky, right? Even for forecasters, let alone for you to have to try to pay attention to where it is, kind of sifting through all that. And that's the best I try to do, is to help explain that for you. Here you can see the snow, not a lot, right? It's mainly going to be above 6,000 feet. So we don't have to really be too concerned about mountain travel, at least due to snow, but those mudslides and debris flows with some of that flooding along the coastal range and for the coast could be a bit of a concern. Not a ton of snow, even at some of the higher elevations of the ski park, but hey, snow is always a welcome sight there, especially this time of the year, right? We take a look at the winds now. The winds are going to be very gusty. We have wind advisories and high wind warnings. Bottom line, strongest winds are going to be late this afternoon, evening, tonight, and into tomorrow morning. Let's take a look at that timing. You can see the winds picking up this afternoon, especially to the north and west. Winds beginning to pick up a little bit here for parts of the valley. By midnight, the cold front pushing through. You see the reds here, deep reds. Now you're getting 50, 60 miles per hour. So winds this strong could create some power outages pretty much anywhere you go. I mean, even the valley, look at that. At 6 a.m., you're seeing those gusts 40, even close to 50 miles per hour. Now, through the day on Wednesday, you'll see that the winds are showing signs of dying down. But keep in mind, it's still going to be gusty throughout the day on Wednesday. And then by Thursday, as that next push of moisture comes in, those winds may ramp up in some areas here. But by Friday, I do expect much calmer winds. Should be a much nicer day as we do go into your Friday. Take a look at the temperatures. Again, they're going to be fairly cool through Friday, but we do climb just slightly above normal by the time we get into the weekend and early next week. So we'll get a break from that and some mild temperatures for the weekend. Here's a look at your lake levels. We did see the biggest drop in the last 24 hours out towards Lake Oroville at a little over a half of a foot, but overall still over 100% of average for where we typically are. Now, not related to the rain, but to the high astronomical tides for tomorrow morning, there is a coastal flood watch. I mean, just insult to injury, right? Through the fact that we're seeing the heaviest rainfall there anyways, right? And part of that heavy rainfall will be in the early morning hours with that high astronomical tide and those gusty south winds. It could create some problems along the coast here. All right, so there you can see those wave heights are showing signs of increasing. There's a small craft advisory this morning. By the afternoon, that will be upgraded to a storm warning, simply because we are going to be looking at some pretty big tides there. There you can see southeast winds at about 20, big waves, excuse me. There you can see those winds from the southeast at about 20 to 25 knots. All right, let's take a look at your neighborhood forecast, sponsored in part by Dignity Health. We've got those temperatures in Trinity County in the mid to upper 50s. Showers and thunderstorms, especially by Wednesday, but we do dry things out really across the board. Friday is the transition day on Friday, and then as we go into the weekend, dry conditions across the board. 64 degrees for a high in Orleans, 69 for Gasquet today. There you can see Hoopa, about 64 degrees. Your Dignity Health Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast, temperatures are going to be in the low 50s, low to mid 50s really on average. For Modoc County, you've got 56 degrees out in Fort Bidwell, 56 in Canby, 56 in Aden, and Tule Lake, about 54 degrees. Now for the eastern mountains, temperatures in the 50s and 60s there. You're going to be looking at some morning showers, but otherwise dry for the second half of the day today. Your valley neighborhood forecast to the south, morning showers, and then those showers will start to dissipate here through the morning. And then really Wednesday, not a lot of activity, especially to the south. And then maybe some showers later in the day on Thursday, drying out by Friday and through the weekend. So again, just that chance on Wednesday, but I don't anticipate a lot. By the way, today's voting day. If you haven't voted yet, remember to get out there and vote. But there you can see on Thursday, you've got, of course, that chance for more showers by the second half of the day, drying out especially by the weekend. Now up north, it's going to take a little bit longer for those showers to clear out, but I do expect that by, say, early mid-afternoon, we'll be looking at drier conditions here, even for places like Redding. Otherwise, temperatures are going to be on the cool side in the low 60s. Now looking at that 7-day forecast, we've got the chance for thunderstorms, better chance for thunderstorms in Redding than Chico, for example. It's dry for the first half of the day on Thursday. And then Thursday afternoon, we've got those showers Thursday evening as well. Friday, transition day, we're drying out, clearing out as well, and temperatures back in the low 70s for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. All right, that's your morning update. I'll be back again at noon for your latest check of the forecast. Have a great morning.
Barr & Mudford is a top established firm here in the North State. Founded over a half-century ago, Barr & Mudford is protecting the rights of our neighbors and community. We take our commitment to our clients very seriously and provide a level of excellence unrivaled in the North State. Barr & Mudford, standing up for the rights of our neighbors and our beautiful community, serving Northern California with excellence.